Yo, chat, it's Dan VR, and today we're going to be talking about ganking. Now, back in my day, I was the resident ganker. Boss raiding and ganking was the whole purpose of my channel. Boss raiding is its whole own concept that can be tackled in its own whole video, because I kind of need some money. But today, I'm going to talk about the problems I see with modern ganking and some easy solutions to it. Ganking, of course, is like a group of people coming together to fight. Typically, it's going to be between 2 or 3 guilds. When you get attacked in a gank, it's chaotic, it's messy, it's insane, but it's a lot of fun. Now, typically you are going to get maybe 2v1 or 3v1, and that's just the name of the game. It's how ganking works, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, there are some key factors sort of changing the way that ganks play out that has been incredibly unhealthy for the game, and that all stems from power creep in the last couple months of updates. The first thing that I want to tackle are mage builds. When you're thinking of ganking, or even just combat in general, in any game, you're thinking of fighting someone. Like you and the other person are looking at each other. You are acknowledging one another. You are trading blows. You are trading mantras. It is a fight. What you end up seeing, however, are mages that will come running in with massive mantras like Flame Repulsion, Permafrost Prison, Shadow Vortex, Emotion Wave, and they aren't fighting you. They aren't really fighting anyone. All they do is they run into a crowd, cast a massive mantra that does massive damage to everyone inside it, and then they run away. Wait for their cooldowns, run back into the crowd, cast a bunch of massive mantras, run back out. They aren't really engaged in a fight in the traditional sense. They're sort of just skimming between people, having their own individual fights, and then throwing in mantras. It is incredibly hard for it to be balanced, let alone fun, when you're getting hit from a mantra so large that you cannot hear or see it even being cast. You're fighting somebody. Next second, there's a massive black fucking pillar beating the piss out of you. Or you get hit with a flame repulsion that is almost impossible to see coming because of how fast it is. Agamatsu had suggested adding a ritual cast to these much larger mantras that are like modified with cloudstones, etc. Personally, well, I do like the idea. I think it's just a little too much. There is no feasible way you can see somebody casting a 14 key ritual cast, which will be canceled at any point if the player is hit, in the middle of a 10-person gank. Instead of a nerf that is more akin to outright removing these mantras from the game, which I think, by and large, is just unhealthy for the general player base's satisfaction and enjoyment of the game. The mantras are here, they've been in the game, and they're not going anywhere. We've got to find a way to live with it, and instead of making them completely unviable, let's just make them more balanced. My solution is a simple damage drop-off. In the past, we saw something like this happen with the Bloodless Gem. If you have a mantra infused with the Bloodless Gem, and you shoot it into a crowd, previously, you would get the full effect of the Bloodless Gem for every player hit, which would result in things like Shadow Gun and Air Force healing you from 1 bar to max. What ended up happening is the more people hit by your mantra, the less you actually heal. I think applying that to massive AoE mantras would be a perfect nerf while still maintaining their viability in the game. For example, if you're on a mage build and run into a crowd and cast a massive Permafrost Prison and hit 5 people, the damage dealt is reduced by 50%. This would greatly reduce its efficiency when you're running into a crowd and casting a mantra no one sees coming. But if you're getting jumped or in a 1v1 scenario, it still would maintain its viability where you're still doing good damage in a 1v1 or a 2v1. The next change that I would like to see happen are changes to mobility. The fun thing about that is that the talents needed already exist in the game. If we saw considerable buffs to Air Counter, Sunken Predator, and Aggressive Posture, the face of the game, the face of ganking, would be entirely different. Sunken Predator, it's simple. Depths ganking and water ganks are still very, very common. If you hit somebody in the water, greatly reduce their movement speed. That is how the talent works. They just need to increase that probably 5-fold. The next one, aggressive posture. S-keying is very common in all forms of combat, but especially when you're in combat in a gank and you knock somebody, what'll happen is they just swap out or run away, and it's very, very hard to actually secure that knock, let alone grip. If you hit somebody and it procs aggressive posture, their movement speed to you specifically, the one who procced the talent, is reduced massively. Something like this exists in ABA, where if you're in player combat and you turn your back to a player and try to run away, your move speed is greatly reduced. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say, Dan VR, that's stupid, that's insane, that's not going to fit in Deepwoken. What if I told you it already exists? In verse 1, the devs already implemented this change in water ganking. Water ganks used to be the primary form of ganking in verse 1. Typically, it was because Fishman was super powerful, but it was also much easier to cheese people without movement. What ended up happening is while swimming, if you turn your back to the person that put you in combat, your move speed is greatly reduced. I think a really cool experiment would be trying that in the overworld, because it is so frustrating when you put somebody in combat or you're winning your fight, and if it's something like a Star-Kindred Gale or a Flame Charm Jet Striker, there is nothing you can do to stop them from running. If they choose to no longer fight you, there is nothing you can do to stop that. With a buffed up air counter and a buffed up aggressive posture, I think that'll even the playing field. Or mobility mantras, mobility and passive agility in general, will still have its place. But you can't just leave the fight whenever you choose. Another big change, and I think a really impactful one, that the devs have already kind of tackled, is increasing the way to secure grips. Right now, you have Reaper, Flame Charm, Detonation, Blade Harper, and Silent Heart. These are the 5 instant grip guaranteed ways to actually get your kill. Because, as I'm sure people who gank can tell you, once a player goes down, if somebody with any of those 5 is not in the vicinity, it becomes a game of fucking monkey in the middle. It's just a body being tossed around until a Jet Striker track star picks him up and then scales a fucking mountain, and you're back to square one. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. I think this would really improve the health of the game and make ganking a much more enjoyable experience for players who are just now getting into it.